What's up, traders, and welcome back to another market analysis video. In this video, we're going to be going over gold as well as dollar, and we're going to also talk a little bit about the previous NFP report, which was on Friday, which we'll go over why it was that price action on gold that day did such a strong pullback. And then we're also going to talk a little bit about the upcoming CPI reports. But let's take a look at these technicals first. So from a technical perspective, if we continue to look at gold, we can see that gold is still very close to these all-time highs. So we're gonna maintain that higher time frame bullish bias again because of the fact that price, if you were to zoom out on gold, like I always recommend everybody to do, you're gonna be able to see from a macro perspective where price is sitting. So it's hard to call sells on gold when we see that gold is so strong and is so bullish at this moment. From a daily perspective on gold, again, on the higher time frame wise, if we take a look at structure and we zoom out, we can understand that gold is still sitting close to these all-time highs. So higher time frame perspective is still more on the bullish side, but you can see that we are kind of stuck now, kind of within this intraday range, which we're going to be able to see now a lot clearer once we get onto like the 4 hour. Again, let me delete this here. On the 4 hour, you can see it a little bit more clear. Over the past couple of weeks, we've had a little bit of indecision kicking into the markets. I say a little bit of indecision because even though price action does seem like it's ranging on gold, these are still very large moves. The majority of us day traders can actually take advantage of, right? So again, from a higher time frame perspective, gold still remains bullish. If we ask ourselves from a fundamental perspective if gold is bullish or not, it is. And again, I'll explain myself in just 1 second here. Before I talk about those fundamentals, I just want to make sure we have the correct level set up. So the new daily candle has basically just opened up. 4 hour perspective, yeah, I'm just gonna leave out these zones. As you can see, we have these lows marked off over here around 24.85. It's a strong area of support. We do have some more areas of reaction around these 24.94s area, 24.93s around this area, as well as these highs around the 25.06s. Now the other areas that we do have marked, like these 2500s, as you can see, it's the most recent report. It's the most recent support that we actually have made around this area where price broke above, ended up having a bearish candle closing just above that area, confirming our new support. And then as you can see, price just continuing towards the upside here. So now, before I talk about the potential moves that can actually play out on gold, I know a lot of you were asking me what was that happened on Friday. Why did this NFP move bring so much volume to the market? So let me quickly explain myself here. Now, actually, let me pull up the report here. So that way, if I can pull up the report and I can show you guys will be able to see why gold ended up doing that pullback. So again, we do have CPI to look out for this week. But let's take a look really quickly at the NFP report so that way we can backtest this and understand this and use this information to our advantage next time that NFP gets released. So NFP and unemployment rate, as you can see, the unemployment rate just basically stayed close to the consensus and the forecast. NFP figures actually came out a little bit above the forecast, but didn't completely beat the consensus, which was 160,000. It came out at 142. So these two reports, when this came out live, when I was looking at this with my community, we took these two reports as more neutral but slightly optimistic reports, again because of the fact that this 142 was just a little bit above, or we can say above the 120k forecast, but again it didn't completely beat that forecast or that consensus. Now, what triggered me to look out for sells on gold was the fact that this number, as you can see here, 0.4%, which was higher than the 0.3 and the 0.2. So this is more optimistic for dollar. When we take a look at this one as well, 3.8%, it actually showed an increase from from what they were expecting, the 3.6 and the 3.7%. So we have basically two reports that were more on the neutral side, we can call it, and then two reports that were actually optimistic. So when we go and we take a look at gold during that time, and again, we literally did this live inside of my community, we saw that gold at that moment had spiked towards the upside. And because there was so many rejections over here to the left, and at this moment, again, with that fundamental information of seeing more optimistic data, we were actually expecting for dollar to start to correct a little bit more. As you can, I'm going to show you here. We were expecting for dollar to actually continue bouncing off of this support and continuing bullish, as well as gold. We had that idea, if we can reject those highs, then most likely we were going to be able to see some pullbacks. So you can see that idea that we had on that day, it was correct, because gold did do those pullbacks, because it did follow the fundamentals, and it also followed the technicals, from the sense that we had those higher time frame rejections of this strong area of resistance over here. And again, connecting that with the current fundamentals of that day, seeing more optimistic data which could strengthen dollar at that moment, we knew that's the idea that we were going to look out for, which was those sells for that day. Now the sells, they did end up playing out. They played out quite well, but again, it does seem like now price is starting to just continue to bounce at the low of the range, or basically very close to the low of the range. Again, if we just zoom out and we look at this from hindsight perspective, this is basically what I'm talking about. The fact that price is not really trending towards the upside, it's not really trending towards the downside. It's sort of just up and down movement, a lot of indecision, not really telling us too much information from that sense. But again, because gold does have pretty decent moves, we can still look to take advantage of some of these moves. Now, we understand NFP, we understand the technicals. The upcoming fundamentals that we got to look out for are going to be the CPI figures and those PPI figures. But to not make this video too long, I'll make sure to make a CPI prep video, so that way we can explain and go over the potential scenarios that we could see on that specific day, which I believe it's Wednesday. Let me make sure over here. I believe it is Wednesday. We're gonna put today. Sorry, I'm gonna just put recent here. Yeah, so Wednesday, September 11th, we have at 8:30 in the morning that CPI report that we have to be on the lookout for. Again, I'm not gonna talk about it too much, because I will make sure to make a video and post it, so that way you guys can take a look at that. Now, let's talk about some trade ideas and talk about the historical repetition, which we can see over here towards the left. When we're looking at these current technicals right now, and we see that price has bounced from this area over here. If we look at the past and we ask ourselves, what is it that price has done in the past from this area? Again, we can see that it clearly has bounced from this area in the past multiple times before. Again, some clean buys above this 24.85 area. So we get that, but we can see that price ended up coming to this exact resistance zone that we actually reacting at the moment, and we have had some pullbacks take place from that area. So with that being said, because price is basically repeating that exact move, if we fail to have any further intraday candle closures back above 2506s and 2507s, then I'm not really going to be looking out for those sells. Again, if candles are closing above this area, because if we are going to be closing above this area, then there's a strong possibility that we are going to start to correct at least some of this move. I don't want to say the whole entire move, but again, just based off probabilities, when we see price trading above this zone, we do have clean moves towards the upside, like we saw over here, moves towards the upside, clean bias towards the upside here multiple times. Again, after it gets above this 2506 area, you do see some strong moves towards the upside. So if we are going to be trading above that area, then okay, sure, it's going to be more valid, or more probabilities in our favor for us to see continued buys. But again, just based off the historical repetition over here from price action, there is that strong possibility that if we start to reject this area, we must look out for some potential pullbacks, at least I want to say down into the 2500s, where I'm going to be looking out for reactions around these areas. If we're not going to get any sort of rejections at this zone to potentially just continue with this current momentum that we have here, of this bullish momentum that we're on, then I'll just simply adapt to continued sells. Again, that's if price is going to be trading below this 2506. And if, of course, we continue to trade below 2500s, I will just continue to adapt to sells, because of the fact that at this moment, we don't have a very strong clear bias, right? So it's going to be, I would say, a good idea that if we are going to reject, again, I know I'm repeating myself, then I would look out to adapt to further sells once trading below these areas. And I would just take it zone by zone, kind of watching the reactions. Again, if we're just going to continue to melt, back into this zone again, like we did in this area over here, basically a pullback down from 2506 all the way down to 2486. So we have that same area here, 2506. It is a possibility that if we trade below 2500, okay, we'll take it level by level. We'll look out for reactions around 2493s. If we continue to trade below that, then we'll just continue to look out for more sells continued down into this 2486's area.